like I'm on. Yep, I am live. Hi, everybody. I don't know. This is Dr. Helen. I am not sure if you are watching us live or if you're going to watch us in post, but I'm very happy to be here with you today. I'm going to let my assistant go from the phone because we had some difficulties going live. Maria, I think I got it. Okay. Okay. Bye bye. Okay, so we have a few questions that we are going to be answering. I got several questions, but just so you know, as Dr. Helen, I am Dr. Helen, and I help people reverse type 2 diabetes. And I do these with integrative changes. So I will do lifestyle changes. There sometimes we might need medications, but we do very little of that. The goal is really to get you off the medication or to not have a need for the medication because of the changes that we have made with your lifestyle. It really works out very, very well. So for the next, this is week number 2. And so we decided for 12 weeks we were going to come on and we were going to answer questions live. So we're going to answer whatever those burning questions are that you have about type 2 diabetes or even inflammation or things that you might have some questions about pertaining to the metabolic disease like this type 2 diabetes. And so we reached out for people and or to tell them that this is what we were doing. And so we have some questions. We actually have about 15 questions. So those of you who watched um, um, on the evergreen last week, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And we do have those questions that you have, and so I have them written down here. And let's start with question number 1. And just so you know, we have about 30 minutes, and we're going to do this 30 minutes every week, just to make sure that you have all the answers and all the information, that you know the way to improve your health, decrease inflammation, so that you can spend the currency of your health, because health is the new currency. And I just want you to spend it wisely. Okay. And so we have about 15 questions. I don't think that I'm going to be able to get to all 15 of those questions today. But whatever we don't get to today, we're going to go on and do next week. And if you have other questions, we can add them to the list. And so we'll get to those questions. And some of the questions that I'm answering today may be something that you probably had a question about in the first place. So we're going to try to clear it all up for you. So question number 1 is, can type 2 diabetes, this is Angela S. She asked, can type 2 diabetes really be reversed? And you know what? The short answer and the long answer is an absolute yes, but I can make that long answer even longer. So here's the thing. The idea that type 2 diabetes is a lifelong disease that you're going to have forever is really fallacy. That is actually what my mother was told when she was diagnosed years ago. But here's the thing. Diabetes is a metabolic condition. It is not a lifelong sentence, and it absolutely can be reversed. And you may ask how? Well, the idea is that we have to decrease the inflammation. We also have to make sure we restore insulin sensitivity. And then if we can also balance the hormones and then, try to get the liver to be nourished, then we can actually help to reverse this disease. And in our program, we not only reverse the disease, but we teach you ways so that you don't ever have to see it again. Because how many of you know that if you develop diabetes or any disease for that matter, and you get the cure for it, that if you do the same things that caused it to come in the first place, it will come back. So we're just trying to, in our program, we teach you how to reverse the disease. We work with you hand in hand to reverse the disease, but not just reverse the disease, but never have to see the disease again. So I have actually seen people who have had who've been on insulin, like they've been on medications plus insulin, and insulin upwards of 300 units per day. That's really high. Blood sugars, even on insulin, still in the twos and 300s, with the medication to lower blood glucose levels. And then just being in our program, just after short periods of time, the blood sugars start to normalize. And this can actually happen in weeks, not years, not, it doesn't take forever for it to get the blood glucose levels back to normal ranges. The problem is, how do we make sure they stay that way? And so we have actually seen these things happen over and over and over again, so that people who've had hemoglobin A1Cs and upwards 13, 14, 15, 17 have been able to normalize those hemoglobin A1Cs once we check once we get that level checked. But we can actually see very early on that the blood glucose levels are dropping to normal ranges. So that was an excellent question. This is a question that I get all of the time. People often wonder if they can reverse type 2 diabetes, and it absolutely, all we have to do, reversal happens when you kind of change the input so that you can reset it, because your body really is designed to respond. Your body is set up to heal, and we just want to create the environment that will allow it to do that. All right, now question number 2. Oh, this is a great question too. If diabetes runs in my family, am I guaranteed to have it? And this is from Marcus T. Marcus, this is a really good question. It's very interesting because I see this question a lot, and people ask it a lot, and and I have the same answer, right? Diabetes is a metabolic disease. You develop it mostly with lifestyle changes. Type 2 diabetes is a diet exacerbated illness. So we talk about genetics. Your mom had it, your dad had it, etc., 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 and you think that you will automatically develop it. Well, let me tell you a little story. See, my mom, I don't know, you may or may not know that my mom developed type 2 diabetes way back when I was in high school. That was ages ago, centuries ago. She developed type 2 diabetes when I was in high school, actually, much younger than that. It was in high school that it started to become even more significant. But when she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, they told her she had a little bit of sugar. And I don't know about you, but I give my husband a little bit of sugar. Like when I leave to go somewhere or he goes somewhere out of town, he gives me a little bit of sugar. Well, type 2 diabetes is not a little sugar. Type 2 diabetes is a very significant disease. But what's interesting is that my mother was one of 12. And I'm going to tell you this, like it has taken me years. I lost my mom in 1993, and it has taken me years to be able to say that I'm having difficulties even today, to say the DEAD word when it relates to my mother. But I lost her to complications of type 2 diabetes, and she was one of 12. There were twins. One of them died at birth. The other one died at 6 months old from an infection. But each one of my mom's family, I have one aunt that lives today, and she's about in her 90s. She also has diabetes, and she also has high blood pressure. She's overweight. She's a nurse. But and she's on medications, and she wants to just, she's satisfied with where she is, because in the old school, people are just like, well, this is what I have, I'm just gonna deal with it. But the newer generations, the younger generations are like, why do I have to take this medication all the time? Like, can I just do something else? And so that is what we teach, is how do you do something else. So the rest of the kids, of the children in my mom's family, had cardiovascular disease or type 2 diabetes. As a matter of fact, my uncle was 35 years old when he had open heart surgery. And he swore, he was like, this was so horrendous that I will die before I let somebody cut my chest open again. And indeed, he did. And he died at age 42, very young. So, most of my mom's family had heart disease and diabetes and complications to it. My aunt was overweight. She was my favorite aunt. She was very overweight. She had diabetes, and diabetes was really bad. She had peripheral neuropathy, so much so that she didn't know, like she had no sensation in her feet. And she got into a hot bathtub and didn't realize that the water was so hot, and she wasn't able to get out of it because of her weight and all those kinds of things. And it literally burned her, and she died of complications of type 2 diabetes and of the burns, obviously. So when we talk about the genes, I am not diabetic. And when we talk about the genes actually load the gun, but your lifestyle is really what pulls the trigger, right? So your genes are going to determine, like, my eyes are dark brown, right? I got that in my genes. My nose is a wide nose. I got that in my genes. This is just like my mom's nose, right? My skin tone, those things are things that are going to happen, like, whether my earlobe is attached or not, or, detached or attached, right? Those are things that are like in the genes. But lifestyle is totally different, and particularly with type 2 diabetes, because it's really our lifestyle that actually causes this inflammatory response that we experience, and that causes all these problems in the gut and all this inflammation and all the insulin resistance and all of those different types of things to get the hormones out of balance and cause a fat to accumulate in the liver. All of those things are really happening as a result of lifestyle. And so type 2 diabetes, you do not have to get it. So if you are in any way thinking that, well, it runs in my family, I'm definitely going to get it, it's really, I like to call it more familial. Like, I see that when a family eats together, they tend to eat the same thing. They do the same things. Like, when things run in the family, is most likely because nobody runs in the family. And so those things are going to keep going, and they're going to keep showing up in different family members because the family members are doing the same thing. They're eating the same way. They have the same type of sedentary lifestyle. They have the same type of response to stress, where, maybe they don't know how to deal with the stressors. They may not move in a way that's meaningful to be able to allow glucose to be uptaken into the cells where they belong. So really, that is what pulls the trigger. So your habits, like your food, your movement, like all that, your sleep, your stress, all of those things far outweigh what is happening in your DNA. It is really mostly because of your lifestyle. So now that I have beaten that dead horse, let's go on to question number 3. All right. Sandra asks a really, really cool question, a really interesting question. She says, "Do I have to give up all my carbs?" And that's really good. Do you have to give up your carbs? Well, let me tell you, Sandra, no, you actually do not have to give up all of your carbs. We don't want you to fear food, but we do want to educate you on the foods that you want to incorporate, and how to incorporate even some of the foods that you want in a different way, that you like to eat in a different way. We that's probably one of the bigger things that kind of got us started in this field. Is I found that many years ago, when I started changing the way I lived my life, the way I showed up in my life, was trying to make sure that I didn't, that I didn't put poisons inside of my body, or that I didn't want to have problems with, like, I just did not want to be diabetic. And it's very interesting that I'd go to a restaurant and ask for, I eat this particular way, and they would, like, bring, like, these salads that were like iceberg lettuce with a little bit of Thousand Island salad dressing. Maybe it had a tomato. Maybe it had a cucumber. I'm like, I have a voracious appetite. And I love to eat. So I eat the salad, and then, like, 10 minutes later, I'm still hungry. And I'm like, okay, what is going on? And then you get something when they started like putting food out. Well, you can eat this or whatever, and you buy the food, and you're like, well, do you have to pay extra for flavor? Because where is it? Like, just because I want to eat healthy doesn't mean I want it to be nasty. And so, so when people talk about, do they have to give up the carbs? No, you don't. We just have to make sure you do the right carbs. You want to make sure that you have like nutrient dense. You want to have fiber rich foods. These are different foods. These are different carbs. There are good carbs and there are bad carbs. And so we'll teach you how to do nutritionally dense, good carbs that you will absolutely enjoy, that you will love. And you'll see some of those in my cookbook. And I'll put that link below. We have a fabulous Thanksgiving cookbook that is available for download like today if you want it. That has some incredible recipes that's full of different kinds of carbs, but that you'll enjoy, that you'll be able to have a delicious Thanksgiving meal and not have to worry about having your sugar spiking up and down. And this is including like desserts and things. So you really have to just put it together in a way that your body can handle it, that won't make your insulin levels go way out of control. So no, you absolutely do not have to give up carbs. Question number 4. Um, so this question, I'm trying to make sure I read this correctly. Why is my blood sugar high in the morning, even when I didn't eat? James R is asking that question. He's like, why is my blood sugar high in the morning, even when I didn't eat? Well, that's a very good question. What you're really describing is something that we call the dawn phenomenon, because what's happening is that when you wake up, the liver automatically is going to start releasing glucose, and it's like release, like certain things are going to go up. Your cortisol level kind of goes up in the morning, kind of gets you awake, and whatever, your glucose levels are going to be going up. So this automatically happens. But the problem is because we have a difficulty in people who are not who have a metabolic issue. They're not able to handle that glucose very well, so the blood sugar levels go up because the body can't, it doesn't get absorbed into the cell and used efficiently. So you're describing the dawn phenomena, and we can really improve that with really doing the proper nutrition, the proper movements, the proper rest, the sleep, exercise. There are all of these different lifestyle changes, and there are things that we can test to make sure that these are not things that are inhibiting your ability to lower your blood glucose levels, and so that you don't have to experience that dawn phenomenon. And it's so interesting how we are so fearfully and wonderfully made that your body has in your pancreas, you have two types of cells. Well, you have a lot of different types of cells, but two that I want to talk about is you have these beta cells and you have these alpha cells. So when your glucose level goes up way too high, or when glucose comes into your system, it doesn't have to be way too high, but when glucose comes into your system, your body is saying, hey, beta cells, we need some insulin so we can put this inside the cell. And then when your insulin levels are going too low, it says, hey, alpha cells, we need some glucagon so that we can get glucose levels up to normal. So it has, like, when the hormones are in balance, your blood sugar remains stable. When you eat food, your glucose levels are going to go up because you're consuming sugar. It goes into the bloodstream, but you don't want it to go straight up like this. You want it to go like this. And so when your blood sugar levels go this way, it doesn't flood your system with too much glucose so that your body can't handle it efficiently. It releases it on a very steady level so that you don't get glucose spikes. Your blood sugar doesn't go way out of control. It stays in a normal range, because that's where we start to get that problem with insulin resistance, is when the insulin levels have to go up way too high, and it's really trying to get glucose to go inside of the cell. So it does. That is what is actually happening in the morning. You're experiencing what's called the dawn phenomenon. Now, question 5. Um, some people, uh, okay, okay, I think I see what you're, okay, I see what it's saying. Okay, this question is from Maya D, and she says, can stress raise my blood sugar? Now, probably if you're listening live with me now, you're probably saying, "Of course it can," and that is exactly the correct thing. And but that's a great question, Maya, because you get these things called stress hormones, right? And the stress hormone, like the significant stress hormone that I know most people have heard of, is cortisol. And cortisol, it's like your body will deal with stress the exact same way no matter what the stressor is. And so for some, the stressor can actually be your glucose level going too high. It could be a toxin. It could be a bear chasing you. It doesn't matter. If you've ever gone to Gatlinburg and you just see the bears on the street, like kind of just hanging out on the street, and you're trying to get away from them because you think that bear is going to chase you. Even the thought that that bear can chase you will cause your cortisol levels to increase. And that cortisol actually does, it's part of our fight or flight system. A fight or flight system. That means I'm going to stay here and fight the bear, or I'm going to flee my flight. I'm going to run from the bear. And so that cortisol goes up in response to allow that to happen, right? Your heart's going to start beating really fast because you got to be able to get away. So that means it's going to be pumping more blood into your legs so that you can actually get ready to run. And so you'll feel those kinds of things. And so that cortisol in the short term is really good because it helps you to be able to recover from things, to be able to get away from the things that are bad. But when the cortisol continues to be elevated, and it continues to be, this is why handling stress or stress tactics are so important, that because if cortisol continues to be elevated, then that means that cortisol will increase your blood sugar levels. And not only will it increase your blood sugar levels, it does a lot of different things. And so one of the things that you will see when you have a high level of cortisol is you'll see what we call a tire around the waist. And you can actually look at people and saying they're not handling stress very well. And again, it may not be stress that's psychological or physical. It might be mental, it might be spiritual, it might be financial. Whatever the stressors are, it tends to put a little tire around the waist. And so you get that. But even more than that, cortisol, continuously high levels of cortisol, can also cause osteoporosis. And it makes me think about the scripture that talks about a merry heart does good like a medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. Like dries up the bone. Like if you're stressed, you're going to get osteoporosis, and we call that brittle bone disease, right? And so I just think that's just so incredible. So yes, cortisol levels stress can increase your blood sugar levels, because it really just, that modern stress, like stress just kind of keeps us in overdrive, like constantly I want to fight or flight, constantly fight or flight. And so it is really important to be able to calm the stressors down. The next question is, what's the difference between type 1 and type 2? uh, what's the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes? And this is Charles is asking, what is the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes? So there are different types of diabetes, type 1, type 2. There's also a diabetes that you can get when you're pregnant, gestational diabetes that usually goes away when the pregnancy. Incidentally, though, 50% of the people who have gestational diabetes will go on to have type 2 diabetes at some point later on in their lives. But type 1 diabetes, oh, and they tend to have very large babies too. Actually, I was one of them. I was the largest baby that my mom had, because of that, 11 pounds, right? A big, big, big baby. The the idea, that there are these two main types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, it's really a problem with beta cells again. So the beta cells, really what it means is that the beta cells are not working at all. Remember, the beta cells are responsible for secreting insulin so that it can help escort glucose inside of the cell where it is utilized. And that glucose, which is the preferred source of energy for your body, it's not fat, it's glucose. Your brain wants glucose, your body wants glucose, and it wants it because it'll go into, it'll be broken down through a couple of chemical reactions, glycolysis, Krebs cycle, electron transport system, and it'll actually go in and start to produce energy. And that's not just energy so that your body can metabolize things and work the way it's supposed to, but it also does it's the energy that your body feels, so that when you have, diabetes and your blood sugar levels are very high, you tend to be really tired. And that's because the glucose does not go inside of the cell. So in type 1 diabetes, those beta cells don't work. And so they actually require exogenous insulin. And so that's why you see people with type 1 diabetes on insulin. And most often they'll have an insulin pump. It will insert a pump so that we'll be able to how to program it so that it secretes a basal layer like all the time. Like your body always has like a base layer to control your blood sugar levels. And so we program that into an instrument so that they are constantly getting outside insulin because their body can't make insulin. And that's different from type 2 diabetes, where your body can make insulin. It just is not recognized by the body or by the cell, or it doesn't work, or it's just it it doesn't fit the receptor. And we talk about receptors on cells. That's how things get inside the cells. There's, for instance, if you can't put a square peg into a round hole, right? And so it's the same thing with that cell, right? That it has to be able to fit on the cell in order to use glucose. And so this insulin, you can make it. It's just not being able to be used by the body to help with uptaking the glucose. So I hope that makes sense, for you, Charles, that there is a difference between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. So type 1 diabetes, I can't make any insulin. And in type 2, I make it, but I can't use it properly. Next question, Latoya. Do I need medication forever? Not necessarily. You do not need medication forever. Now, but you have to do something. I have people who say, "Hey, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, but I'm not claiming that." Well, if you don't do anything about it, it will claim you, and you don't have to claim it. It will claim you. And so the medications are going to manage the disease. It's going to manage the type 2 diabetes. And remember, we talked about a little bit before, we talked about the hormone balancing with glucagon and insulin. When you take medications, it's going to do what that medication does. So if that medication is used to increase insulin, it's going to continue to increase insulin. And so it's going to be taking up glucose, and that's how your blood sugars can go down and kind of yo-yo, because you might eat differently and not need as much of the insulin, but your body is still secreting it because the medication is saying, "Hey, keep doing this, to get your blood sugars down." That is particularly true with insulin, because insulin is going to just wherever it sees glucose, it's going to grab it to try to pull it inside of the cell. So your glucose levels can go down really low, and that can be very dangerous. But your body has a different way of doing it. Your body says, "Oh, I sense that my glucose is low. Let me get some glucagon." oh, I sense that my glucose levels are too high. Let me get some insulin. So that's kind of what happens when your body does it, but the medications don't do it that way, as we said before. And so when we can get your insulin to not be resistant, so your body is not resistant to the insulin, and we can improve the insulin sensitivity, if we can decrease the inflammation, if we can decrease the, if we can nourish the liver, and then make sure that we are getting the hormones in balance, then you wouldn't have to be on these medications for the rest of your life. These medications can actually be done away with, and we can teach you how to get off of those things. So we are at time, a little bit over time. I'm sorry about that. But each week we're going to be here at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time, where we're going to answer your questions. If you have any questions that you would like to put in the queue for us to answer next week, then please, you can email us at info@p the number 2 whealth.com, or support at p the number 2 whealth.com. Info at p2whealth.com, or support at p2whealth.com. And we'll pull your questions up and we'll answer them next week, so that you can get those burning questions answered. Again, I'm going to put, Maria will put the link to the Thanksgiving holiday, not just Thanksgiving, but the holiday cookbook, in the link below this video, so that you can download it. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week. Remember, health is the new currency. Please spend it wisely. We'll see you next time. Take care.